Welcome back to Sci-Fi Book Trek. Today we'll be doing spoiler talk on Off to Be the Wizard by Scott Meyer.
You're off to see the wizard, the wonderful Wizard of Oz. You'll find he is a wizard of wisdom.
And now a summary.
What would you do if you suddenly found the cheat codes for the universe? That is the question asked of Martin Banks when he finds a random file on a random server on the internet one day and decides to search for his name and then changes his height to see what happens. Because that's exactly what you do as a bloke, you change your height. Having discovered that he has the ability to control the simulation, he proceeds to rosebud himself a load of money and then goes on a bender.
I'm unstoppable!
This immediately brings the FBI down on him because apparently they have random alarms go off when some private citizen's bank account goes from 1,000 to 1 million without any deposits.
I have to go. Somewhere there is a crime happening.
And they immediately think, this is something we need to investigate to see whether a crime has been committed, as opposed to, the computer's fucked something up.
Hello, IT? Have you tried turning it off and on again?
So after being dragged in by the popo, because his bank account developed a priapism overnight, he decides that instead of feigning ignorance and bluffing his way out, the best thing to do is teleport. This leads to him leading the police on a merry car chase, resulting in a fiery wreck that leads them to his parents' house, because that's exactly what you do when you're trying to escape the law, lead them to the people that you love.
Not a great plan.
He then runs into his old bedroom, much to his parents' surprise, who are told, don't open the door to the cops, and then he locks himself in his room. He pulls his emergency ripcord and teleports himself back to medieval England and vows to live out his days as a wizard. When he arrives, he meets his first challenger, Philip, who is unimpressed with his shenanigans and proceeds to use the Kamehameha blast to kick his ass out of town straight into a tree. It's at that point that Martin realises he's not the first person to have discovered the cheat file, and that puts him on the path of training and squireship with Philip, which will result in him either ascending to full wizardship or being tied up, sent back to his own time to face the cops, with the further insult that his access to the cheat code file will be blocked forever. There's a brief training montage where Philip teaches Martin the ropes, including exercising a prepubescent teen of his demons, and learning about the community of wizards and their rules. During this time, we're introduced to Smurfette, the local seamstress who busies herself with the task of making clothes and knowing her place as a woman. And Martin repeatedly hits on her at every chance to get, despite being asked not to by Philip, Gwen, several others, who all give the heavy implication that Gwen bumps the donut, presses the pancake, doesn't drive a stick shift, prefers the taste of oysters to sausage, is of the opposite persuasion, etc., etc. There are other minor characters that are introduced that become Martin's gaming buddies, which is also part of the trials to see if he's going to be a Gandalf or a Voldemort. The trials take place at Camelot.
Camelot! It's only a model.
At the home of the esteemed Merlin, also known as Jim the Enchanter. Martin wows the audience of appreciative programming nerds and is welcomed into the Nerd Magic Circle. As Martin begins to settle into his new life, he's asked by Gwen to assist her with a small issue that's been dealing with for a portion of the book.
Help! Somebody help! Little me!
There's a village that's been complaining that their clothes have been getting longer, and she has a batch of new clothing ready to take over to them. When she arrived, she discovers to her horror that the entire village has died.
Not Chen! Gordon Bennett, yes, Chen, everybody's dead, Dave.
She brings Martin and friends to the scene to confirm her suspicions. It seems like the entire village has been the result of an experiment trying to make hobbits. The group are then accosted by a group of thugs, who manage to separate them from their means of casting spells, their wand, their staff, etc. The thugs begin threatening the group because they realise that the only person that can possibly murder an entire town would be a wizard.
A wizard did it.
They realise very quickly that because of the cheat codes, it's not actually possible to hurt the wizards, so they turn their attention to Gwen, the only girl in their midst. And with a tearing of clothes and a scream of no, The thugs are completely disarmed and helpless before Gwen, who it turns out has been a witch the entire time. The group then reconvene to discuss who might have converted an entire village to hobbits, and instead of thinking of the narcissist living in London who has appointed themselves Grand High Overseer, they immediately think of Martin's best friend and mentor since the beginning, Philip. Suppose there is a possibility that the author was trying to pull a neat switcheroo, but no, it's exactly who you think it is. Jimmy shows absolutely no regrets at the death in an entire village full of people, and it's at this point the book shows us there's one point where it might actually be exploring the concepts behind living in a simulation, where they're essentially all data in a file stored on some server somewhere. If nothing truly exists, can you even kill it?
Access his interpersonal subroutines, familial characters. Delete the wife.
Well, that was a hot 10 seconds. Time for a Helm's Deep fight between a bunch of sweaty, out-of-shape nerds and a hardened army of orc warriors that Jim has whipped up in his quest to create Middle-earth in merry old England. Martin's able to save the day because of course he can, because his phone allows him direct access to the file, and he's able to rescue them all from certain death. He then battles Jim to an extremely anticlimactic ending, and the group decides to strip Jim of all his wizard powers and send him back to his own time, with an additional issue that nothing electronic will ever work for him again.
Hello, IT. Have you tried turning it off and on again? Have you tried sticking it up your arse?
In the coda, Gwen decides she's going to move to Atlantis, a haven for only female witches who presumably, like pulled fish over pulled pork, prefer the company of the fairer sex, like to indulge in the munching of the rug. Martin is appointed liaison to the royal family, Philip's made the new chairman, and the book ends with Martin returning briefly to the future to talk to his very startled parents who have seen him appear, disappear a couple of times throughout the book. Our final moments are that of an old-looking man with a pad and pencil, making notes of Martin's movements before hopping onto a bike and trailing his car.
He replaced my Cialis with methamphetamines.
Pedal faster! I can't go any faster!
Where you going, kids? Hey, I just want to talk to you. Why don't you come over to my place for a glass of wine and a couple of fruit pies, and then we can go in the back room and play crazy snakes.
Right then, shall we go into hates and hates? Sorry, loves and hates.
Yes, let's do so.
For my loves about it, it was easy to read. I'm kind of struggling for anything else because it was annoying.
He couldn't even set fire to it because he got the Kindle version.
Yeah, I couldn't smash it because, yeah, it's Kindle. That pretty much covers all the loves I have about it. Yep, that's it. I mean, do you want to cover any loves?
There's a couple of scenes that I thought are kind of fun. The prepubescent exercising of demons.
You know what she did?
I kind of like that bit because...
Oh, yeah.
You've got the bishop and Philip, and they're putting on this massive display of, oh, we are exorcising the demons, and meanwhile they're all sitting in the shed just playing cards, shooting the shit with this kid who's clearly going through puberty and is a moody little bastard, and the priest is just trying to go, look, pal, we've all been through it. It's just a thing.
I mean, yeah, it would be nice, but with subsistent farmers and periods of his time, being a teenager wasn't a thing, and understanding teenagers weren't a thing, and the person who would not understand teenagers or rebellion the most would be, I don't know, a head of a church.
If you can't trust a Catholic priest with a child, who can you trust?
I just thought it was kind of a fun situation.
Yes, like, it's a kind of fun setup. If you suspend your disbelief, it's fun.
And that is the thing. I mean, I think I was more willing to suspend my disbelief than you were, because some of the comedy for me actually landed. Obviously, it was grating, like having your face.
I suspended my disbelief over the start with all the IT stuff.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, okay, this is just how to get to where we're going. Then we got to medieval, and it was just, what the fuck is this? This feels like you're in a D&D setting, or like what Americans call a Ren fair.
Yeah, it did feel like it.
This is not medieval fucking England.
Welcome to medieval times. I'll be your serving wench, Melinda. Might I fetch you something from the barkeep?
Gwen. She's underserved throughout the whole of the story.
Yeah.
And then at the end, it's like, okay, there's another problem I will come to, and I will come to that. But at the end, it's like, if anything, she should have had a scene with Phil. And Phil sort of like, either kissing her forehead, giving it like, going, oh yes, goodbye, or something. Because it felt like Phil and Gwen were, not, I wouldn't say in a relationship, but the closest.
Yeah, they
to
were.
They were like, they
But
respected
they also
each other.
Understood each other.
Yes.
And as much as I was taking the piss out and making lesbian jokes, I don't mean anything by that. Let's put that straight to bed.
Phrasing. Shut up!
As much as I was making those jokes, I thought Phil was giving me extreme of possibly being gay, and that Gwen was possibly lesbian, and that they bonded and had a closer friendship over that both of them are essentially homosexuals in a, and they couldn't even find, because I mean, this
I
is
didn't read it like that, but yeah, I could see that.
That's how it came across to me.
It felt like, I think the end scene should have been between Phil and Gwen.
I will completely agree with that, because they had more.
There
was more
like
friendship.
Going on, yeah.
There was more camaraderie between those two than there was between Martin, who just would not accept fucking no for an answer, and Gwen.
Yeah.
And a lot of my hates regarding the book do actually follow with regards to Gwen more so than anything else. The issue that I mainly had, right, her salutation.
Sal? Huh? You?
The wizard salutation is a unique spell to them.
Yeah, to show off their initial, like...
Yeah, it shows off something about their personality. Gwen's salutation is when she says no, a field erupts around her which pushes off anyone that is near her and launches them across a great distance away from her. Has she had to use this before because someone has got handsy with her and she's had to basically set up a macro to stave off potential rapists? And I don't know whether he's done that deliberately or whether it's just an accident and he's just not realised what the hell he's done with that implication.
Like, the thing is, I could see a woman going back to the Middle Ages like that, having made a macro sort of like that, just in case.
But
just because if she's travelling alone at night in her cart, taking stuff here and thither,
perhaps
it's like I can see why she's made that spell, just in case. As her main spell, though, it has connotation problems.
But then the next part, as an extension of that, is that we then find out that all of the female witches who have ever come to that time period, apart from Gwen at this point, have all felt the need to escape to Atlantis, which is more accepting of female wizards. And then you start thinking, okay, what the hell have these boys done to make every single woman that has ever... I'm sorry, this is the implication.
I agree with you. However, it's you say all women. All the men of there can be easily described as fucking neckbeards. Like, there's no different sorts of types of men. They are all sort of one type only.
Yes. Sweaty nerds.
Well, yeah, I wouldn't even go that far. Because calling sweaty nerds, there's more variety in the category of sweaty nerds than there are, like, the wizards in this book. I don't know why I'm doing air quotes.
I developed a weather-changing machine, which was in essence a sophisticated heat beam, which we called a laser.
That brings me on to another issue. Martin apparently looks up, I'll look up information on Merlin. He's a great wizard. Oh, he's fictional. That's a shame. However, Atlantis exists. People know of its existence, know where it is, can easily get there, and apparently, for some reason, it's Thema fucking Skira, where men are killed on sight. When did that enter the Atlantis lore?
I didn't realize you,
That my team was a bunch of girls, sir?
That's not what I was going to say.
One final hate for me, so that we can actually move on to the to the nitpick section, because you're obviously dying to. I don't like the fact that the book introduced some very heavy concepts. The ideas of time travel, being in a simulation, and a lot of this stuff is basically just brought in for meeting yourself. Going back in time, meeting yourself. They're concepts that are just brought up for a single sort of, oh, that's nice.
That's nice, dear.
And then just thrown away.
Yeah.
And then there's no more explanation on it. And it's like,
okay. Because Phil has a throwaway line near the end where he says, oh yes, there's been other time travellers and they've corrupted this part of history, but anything we do doesn't impact on future events. That's called having your cake and eating it. That's like saying, oh yeah, all the things I've got wrong about medieval, yeah, that was part of the corruption of things, but I can't, we don't corrupt the future, because that would be a plot point I would have to fucking deal with. I thought, right, he has to be doing this deliberately. It has to be going somewhere. Like, maybe this part of history does not exist, and this is the program's made a subroutine. A subroutine of itself for one person who went back. But now more people are going back to it. It's starting to fail, so it's getting more and more corrupted, and like the people turning into hobbits, that is just like another symptom of it's going to implode or collapse or something, and they have to save their universe as it is, and that would be the final conclusion. But no, the tired fucking crappy trope, if you can't think of anything, evil wizard, evil fucking wizard, fuck you shit.
Nitpicks?
Hack fucking writer. Right, nitpicks.
Nitpicks.
We'll do a little test. Now, Martin first comes into medieval England in Dover. Now, that's in Kent. He appears. Now, he's apparently on the White Cliffs. He doesn't head towards Dover, which is a sort of big city with about 500 people in at this time. Now, we know this because the Doomsday Book was written in about 1086, I want to say. And the Doomsday Book is sort of a census of all the cities and like all the land, essentially. It's for about paying taxes.
Yeah, it was.
So it's like who owns the land, how many people live there, and stuff like that.
How much cattle?
Yes. How much is everything worth? So like everything's recorded. So if you want to make up, I don't know, say a town, you could pull one of the names from the Doomsday Book, which is accessible online, or even in printed versions you can get it. But he finds a road, and it's like sort of, he describes it as sort of paved of some kind.
Which would suggest that it's a Roman road.
Yeah, all right, I'll grant you, the aqueduct and sanitation are two things the Romans have done. And the roads.
Yes.
Because...
Now, what's the one schoolboy fact you know about a Roman road?
That they were straight.
What is the road in this? It's wibbly wobbly. It's wonky. So he can just skip bits at a time, and suddenly Gwen's behind him in the carriage because he goes, oh, she must have been on a long bend. It's like, one, it would be a Roman road. They're straight. Two, it's Kent. There's more topography on an A4 piece of fucking paper.
Yes.
Like, what is it going around? Fucking gullies and rivers. Like, there's Kent. Now, at this time, there are taverns introduced by the Romans, which are mostly wine drinking establishments and cider. You've got inns, which are just there for sleeping mostly. They'll like fix you up, maybe a bit of food, a bit of drink, but they're there mostly to go, like, this is your bedroom, the bed's there with 15 other people, get in, spend your night, then you can go off on your travels. And then you've got ale houses, which are just, no, they become pubs. In this time period, they are just women who brew some ale in a cauldron, and they stick out a walking stick or a broom outside their house to indicate they've got a brew on. So you can come by and go into their house and buy ale from them. And that becomes pub, because it's a public house.
I don't know any of this.
Yeah. But
and this is a man who didn't take history.
Yeah. It becomes a public house. And that's where we get pub from. So, there are three types of establishments. He goes into something called an inn, which seems like a more modern pub.
Nice looking group. Hey, listen, at least it's warm in here.
Because it's serving the, like... It's pub, essentially, what we would call a pub, which doesn't exist at this time, because it's not a tavern, because it's not serving the upper class, because it's not nice enough. Then, of course, you've got the name of the pub. It says, the Rotting Stump Inn. Now, he says it's named that. It's written down, like, on the top. Who the fuck's that for?
No, because no one reads.
I mean, I've overlooked the fact, at this time, everyone should be talking Old English, which is nothing like modern English.
I'm Beowulf. I'm here to kill your monster.
And he's like talking a completely separate language, so he wouldn't understand anything. No. I'll overlook that, because, like, you have to overlook that on a number of things, or a number of books. I'm like, fine with that. But it's written the Rotting Stump. The only bastard who would be able to read that is the person who wrote it. Because even the educated priest, he would only know how to read Latin.
Romanes eunt domus. People call Romanes, they go the house. It says Romans go home. No, it doesn't.
It's called the Rotting Stump. One, that sounds like a good name for a D&D pub if you don't know pub names. Medieval pub, no. Because, like, how are you would have to portray that in a picture or in a sculpture, the statue.
Because signs, even...
And, like, you can't easily display rotting it would just be called the stump if you got a stump out. And having just a brown stump outside your place does not look great.
Interestingly enough, though, where I live, there is a pub up the road called The Stump.
Yeah, but that's the thing. You'd call it The Stump. If you look up... Now, I had an inkling about this time period because it mentioned King Stephen.
Yes.
And I was thinking, there's something about King Stephen. Buried in my back of the head, I was like, he wasn't a good king for some reason.
Yeah.
This shows you how little research he did. Because if you look up, in the period 1138 to 1153 is known as the Anarchy. Scotland rebelled, Wales rebelled, and there was a fight between Empress Matilda and King Stephen. Empress Matilda invaded England and took like half of it, like half of the south.
Yeah. This is the time period of Cadfael. Seriously,
Yeah.
King Stephen and, well, it's Empress Maud in the Cadfael.
Well, it's Empress Matilda, I think. In history, yeah.
Yeah.
You should have helpers.
Oh, I did have two until recently. Youngsters like yourself. But their families belonged to Empress Maud's faction. And with the approach of King Stephen's army, they both felt there were safer places to be than here in Shrewsbury under siege.
And she took, like, most of the, southeast? No, so southwest. Stephen had southeast.
Yeah, and Shrewsbury was a major battleground.
And nothing of value was lost.
This was happening when, like, she had already invaded and took, like, half the south before, Jimmy arrived. So Jimmy can't do anything about it. Right.
Are you sure you never did history?
But no, that's the thing. You had the start of this, like, Queen Matilda, Empress Matilda, who's also a badass, fighting the King of Stephen for the throne of England at this time. And you've not mentioned at all. It's like a time of peace, apparently.
This is fine. I'm okay with the events that are unfolding currently.
Oh, like all this history is going on at this time. Nothing. Because he didn't do the slightest bit of fucking research.
Okay.
Like,
okay, well, how about the science aspects? Have you got any nitpicks for...
how you, as a programmer, you know this. You write in ASCII.
Yes. One, he's not a hacker, he's a script kiddie. The other thing is, yeah, okay, you find how many gigabyte? Like 13 gigabyte, 14 gigabyte?
I think he said it was like only 5.
But even so,
yeah.
it's a 5 gigabyte text file. Okay, unusual, yes. However, he opens it, it's basically garbage. Some of the text is changing, some of the stuff is moving around, and then he just goes, oh, for a whim, I'm going to search for my name. One, how the fuck is he the only Martin Banks in the entire world? Even when he puts his middle name in, which I cannot remember what the hell his middle name is.
Who cares? It's not unimportant. But yeah, he's just stupid, and it's like, why would
you do that?
Like, what fucking narcissist would do that?
And that's the other thing. He says, oh yes, I've thought about this for a while, and I've decided that I'm not a narcissist. I don't think about myself enough. Just because you call out your plot holes, do not make them any less of fucking plot holes. And to come on to that point, later on, the character of Tyler, when they mention that Tyler has maintained an apartment in modern day in order to use the bathroom. So every time he needs to move his bowels, he flips back and forth between, the present and modern day. Now, bear in mind that if he goes back to literally a second after he has flitted out from the previous time, one, his toilet ain't going to be bloody full by the time he goes back, because you flush it, it's got to refill. But that's minor. The other problem is that the book even says that based on this, he's been doing this for the past 5.5 years in his real time. So he has put 5.5 years worth of shit down that toilet, but in local time to that time period, he has been popping in, doing his business, popping out, popping back immediately like a second later, doing his business, popping back. 5.5 years worth of shit going down a toilet in the space of a day, 2 days. That toilet's fucking blocked. You can't put 5.5 years worth of shit down that in such a short time. And it actually points out that's 5.5 years worth of water usage, 5.5 years worth of shit. And they pointed out, he goes, oh yeah, that's funny.
That is one big pile of shit.
Yeah, but that's a plot hole. And again, just because you point out your plot holes does not make them any less of a plot hole. You can't just go, hey, we identified that problem. It's a, yeah, still a problem.
Yeah, back to medieval time. Like the town, it seems to fluctuate in size. I cannot tell whether it's a village or a town. It's described, it says town, but I don't think he knows the difference between a town and a village. When Martin goes out looking for some food, there is only the inn and apparently a fruit stand in the evening. You know, because fruit stands operate all the time.
Yeah, 24-hour fruit stand in medieval England. And just random fruit stand as opposed to being in a marketplace.
Yeah, and did you get the biggest? Fuck you, I don't care. What fruit was he selling?
I don't know, I didn't.
Pumpkins!
Oh yeah, seasonal.
Also, exclusive to North of fucking America.
Were they?
You can't. They are native to North America.
Okay. I didn't know that.
The one fucking almost vegetable you can pick which isn't available in fucking Europe at this time because there's no fucking trade.
Well, they didn't even know America existed.
He just wanted, I want a big sort of thing a fruit seller would be selling.
Subject of time travel, right? It's proven early on in the book that it's possible to run into yourself. So, the same person existing in the same time period as basically yourself. If there are two identical beings and you meet yourself, that means you created a causal loop. So, at some point in the future, you are then obligated to come back in time and play out the chess game or whatever game he was playing at the time in the book. I can't remember.
No, I think it was cards, or something.
Okay. But then that completely removes the whole idea of free will. You've completely taken free will out of the equation because you have to, at some point, come back and meet yourself in order to close that loop.
There are tons of questions that this just does not answer.
I mean, the other thing with the two copies, right? So there's a point at which Martin goes, he teleports himself back to the Middle Ages. Cool, fine, okay, that's not a problem. But he toys with the idea of hitting the button a second time, which would take him to the exact same place, the exact same spot, the exact same time. Now, there's already a Martin that exists in that time. If he hits that button again, he's going to just go to the exact same place and time. What does that then do for the timeline?
Yeah, but you had the same problem with whenever he teleported. Because he would go, oh, look, I can't be asked walking down this road, which is wiggly for some reason. I'm just going to teleport straight across. Right, so he can actually know the correct height. So his feet doesn't get embedded into the gravel. None of that is a problem or an issue. But we'll go on to the fight at the end.
Phil crap.
Phil uses his staff and smashes the Tabasco sauce into Jimmy's face to end the fight.
Yes.
However, in the script, what they set up is They can't be harmed, and their staff can't
It's
be
indestructible.
Yes.
Yeah.
So he sets up a thing and then breaks it. That's like a major no-no. At the end, you have the character, like, it's Jimmy, following Martin about in the real world. How does Jimmy know where Martin will be at that specific time?
Yeah.
And like, why hasn't he tracked down any of the other people?
I mean, the only thing that I can think of...
Because, the only thing I could think of was because Martin is the protagonist, so everything has to happen to him.
You would have thought that it would have been more likely that he would have tracked down Philip. One, they know more about one another, presumably. There's more antagonism between those two. The only thing that happens is that Martin obviously puts pay to the plans of Jimmy.
Yeah, because Martin has to be the one to fight Jimmy because, you know, he's the new member, so, and the book's about him, so it has to be that way.
That theme that I mentioned earlier in the non-spoiler section, that I don't know whether it was a deliberate thing or whether it's just incidental, and because I've read further into it, you could argue that there is a theme that suggests that Martin could have easily turned out like Jimmy because he's a self-absorbed narcissistic prick that doesn't really change much other than the fact that he's got Philip basically trying to instruct him in the better ways, to mentor him, to keep him on the right path, something that Jimmy didn't have. So there is an argument that you could say that there is a theme that by being kept down the right path by a good person, it stopped him turning into another Jimmy.
Maybe.
But I think that's possibly that I'm reading far too much into it.
Or you could read, don't have driving ambition, just be a wasteoid.
Shall we go on to final thoughts so that you can get
Fine.
that? Yeah.
Final thoughts.
Okay, I'm not going to lie, you have been quite passionate with what you've been saying. So, would that change my recommendation? I would say, yeah, my recommendation has slipped a few points. It's no longer a neutral meh. It's more sort of now dropped to that level of... Yeah, I mean, you have pointed out a few things that have actually made perfect sense, and even just talking about the nitpicks and all of the problems with the book, getting that out in such a way as to actually discuss it and bring it up, it's like, actually, yeah, this isn't very well written at all. I mean, I still don't hate it, and I don't know, certainly not as much as you, I don't know why I don't hate it. It's just maybe I was able to just turn my brain off and just go.
Yeah. Like if that's what you really do.
Likes cranes.
You really do have to turn your brain off.
Yeah. I completely agree with you.
But yeah, for me, I think if it wasn't for the fact that it occasionally touches on ideas and then does absolutely nothing with, or just walks completely out of the room. If it wasn't for that, I would just be going, yeah, it's a nothing book. But because it occasionally touches on stuff and then like purposely turns around and walks the other way,
yeah,
it's like this is
it's
dog
just
shit.
Added frustration,
and
because it's like it's going somewhere and then it goes lol.
Yeah, and like it doesn't even feel deliberate, like doing that. It's not like a troll thing. It's just doesn't know how to fucking write something engaging. This feels like it's written by a 16-year-old most of the time. This book is shit.
So, would you go on to read the sequel? Because I think it's like 6 books in this series.
Oh yeah, and I thought it's going to be on dog shit. especially the ending of this, it's like, oh, that's how they're setting up, really. That's fucking dog shit. That's absolutely fucking dog shit. And I'm sorry, what they should have done with Jimmy was just put, it's pronounced Falkland Islands, sent him back, and then watched him fucking die.
Oh boy. I mean,
like, oh god, this is just a piece of fucking wank. It's just shit. It doesn't do anything with any concept it brings up. It gets everything it tries to do wrong. The author's done absolutely bugger all fucking research. And like, this was written in 2014. It's not like, you know, the internet or Google or something. If it was written back in the fucking 50s or 60s, I would be like, okay, fair enough. But this was written during the fucking internet, and I'm sure he's got a fucking working hands and fucking eyes that he could easily fucking Google shit. This is unacceptable drivel. But yeah, I don't recommend.
When I first read this, there was no follow-up. This was literally the only book.
Mm.
There was no series. This was the only book, so it did surprise me writing for this review that I suddenly went, this is one of 6? What? When did that happen? How the fuck are they going to continue that? So,
well, you know, sometimes when you get diarrhea, you get a lot of it. Right, anyway, I think we'll end it there because it's getting rather heated because of the heat, and also I really think this book is shit. So
you watch this be our most watched review just because they like watching you get really, really narked and pissy. And then you'll have to continue to do that for every single review following.
I tell you what, if this review gets over, I don't know, gets us over 100 subscribers, I'll read the second one. Now, next week, we shall be reading a short story collection to mix it up a bit. And it will be Isaac Asimov's I, Robot. And this is a slightly battered copy with Will Smith on it, but it is actually, you know, the short stories of Isaac Asimov.
Yes, it's not the novelisation of the film.
Yes. So we'll be reading that next week and hopefully enjoying it, because this writer has more than 2 brain cells.
I think it's going to be a palate cleanser for your brain. Thanks for watching, guys, and as always, please like and subscribe. Bye.
You fucking knobhead! Pumpkins! Fuck you, you wanker. I'm sorry, but like, it was just like, what are you fucking on about? Pumpkins! What are you fucking... You just don't care at this point. You just don't give a shit. Pumpkins! So he's like, at that point, I just calmed down slightly, because I was like, why the fuck should I give a shit? Sneak